What is up, Endgame community? Thanks for joining us once again. We've already covered early round landmines, so now let's get to the middle rounds. We're going to talk about some players that we think might bust and go boom in the wrong way. Guys, we are avoiding at their current ADP anywhere from round 4 on to, let's say, about round 10, depending on your league. But we're pulling from drafters ADP. So let's get going. Chris, who's a mid-round landmine you're looking to avoid?
I'm going to start with a wide receiver this time. I'll shock y'all, and it's DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. Look, he wasn't even the team's wide receiver one last year, and that was with Teddy Bridgewater. Now they have Sam Darnold, and I'm sorry, I just don't believe in Sam Darnold. I don't. Sam Darnold has not shown me anything to make me think it's there. That somewhere, Adam Gase, was such a terrible coach that he throttled this elite quarterback. I just don't think it's there. I just think Sam Darnold is a, average to below average NFL quarterback, and that's not good for the passing game. And like I said, last year, Robbie Anderson had almost 30 more targets than DJ Moore. And guess what? They didn't have Christian McCaffrey last year either. And if you're talking about Curtis Samuel being gone, well, they drafted Terrace Marshall to replace him. So I don't think it's going to be any better for DJ Moore. And speaking of Robbie Anderson, I'd rather just wait 3 more rounds and just draft Robbie Anderson if I really want one of these Carolina pass catchers. I just think people are still drafting DJ Moore like a young superstar wide receiver when he really isn't. So for me, he's a complete avoid.
Yeah, look, we say this all the time. Great talent, right? Love the player, just not a great situation. And I have to agree with Darnold. Look, he would have shown something. It's not just that he was held back by Gase. I mean, he just didn't look like a good quarterback. So I don't think we can expect too much. And definitely think that if you really want a piece of this Carolina pass attack, yeah, go with Robbie Anderson a couple of rounds later instead. Now, I know we all love shiny new toys. Rookies, right, can be very exciting, especially when they are generational talents. But let's actually reflect on how many rookie tight ends make an impact in the league. And Kyle Pitts is going to be the shiniest of the toys because he was the earliest tight end ever drafted. And I think people are going to really lose their minds if when Julio Jones gets traded. He's going out right now as the tight end 4 in a lot of drafts, at the very least tight end 5, right? It doesn't fall later than that. So you're paying a 5th round, sometimes a 4th round price for him. So let's think about this tight end who, of course, I'll admit, he's super athletic. He could wind up being the best tight end ever, who knows? But he is 20 years old, not even 21, okay? And he's going to a team that admittedly will pass the ball a lot because they have to, but still, how much are they going to throw it to him where he can just shatter rookie records and be worth a tight end 4 pick after guys like Kittle and Waller? I think we're losing our minds on Pitts just because we love the combine numbers, the pro day numbers, I guess, in this case, and love watching his tape in college. This is a pro game, right? It's a grown man's game, and he's not quite a grown man yet. I think that the price is just way too rich on him. In round 4 or round 5, you really can't find a wide receiver that will outproduce him at tight end. I absolutely know that you can. So again, maybe he'll turn out to be the best tight end in the history of the league. I think I'll wait another year to find out. All right, let's get on to another bust, somebody that you have in your mind's eye that you want no part of in your queue. Chris, who you got?
I'm going back to running back, and it's Chase Edmonds. This is a guy who I like if I can get in like the 9th, 10th round, but you got to draft this guy in round 6 because everybody got all excited early in the offseason when Kenyon Drake signed with the Raiders, like, oh, it's going to be Chase Edmonds. It's going to be his backfield. Okay, we're talking about a guy who's been in the league for 3 years. He's never had 100 rushing attempts in a season. And suddenly he was going to be a 3-down workhorse back. And last year, the one game that Kenyon Drake missed, the guy got 28 touches, and he put up a whopping 88 total yards, 2.8 yards per carry. This guy is not a between the tackles runner. He's good at what he does. He's a great change of pace back. He's great in space. He's great when you get the ball in his hands, outside the tackle areas. But he's not a guy you want between the tackles, and that's why they signed James Conner. Look at Kenyon Drake last year. Kenyon Drake wasn't great because you were drafting him in the 2nd round, but he was actually pretty decent as far as an NFL running back goes, and he got the bulk of the carries. That's what's going to happen here with James Conner. He's going to get the bulk of the carries. He's going to get the goal line work. Sure, Chase Edmonds will be the change of pace pass catching back, but you're drafting a running back in the 6th round who's going to catch 50 to 60 passes and maybe carry the rock 60 to 70 times. That's ridiculous. That's not worth it at all. You've got to hope that James Conner gets a season-ending injury at some point, and that they don't go in and bring in another running back and just say, oh, well, we'll just roll with Chase Edmonds, which I don't even know if they will in that case. I just think he's being way overdrafted. Everybody got too excited, about Chase Edmonds being a 3-down back, which he's not a 3-down back, and he's being way overdrafted now.
Completely agree. Look, there's no way Chase Edmonds was ever going to be a 3-down back. He wasn't drafted to be that. He was one of these mid-round draft picks. They don't have a lot of capital invested in him. He's not a between the tackles runner. Everything you just said, why would we think he would be? So he's being drafted way too high. Kenyon Drake in Arizona, you mentioned him last year, 7th in the league in rush attempts. Probably people didn't know that. He got the ball so much. Well, guess where he is now? He's in Vegas. That's right. Josh Jacobs was the lead guy there, and now it's probably going to be a timeshare because they didn't sign Drake for nothing, right? He's not a depth addition. This is a guy who can definitely tote the rock. And even though Jacobs might technically be the starter per se, there's no way he gets the volume he did last year. And let's be honest, Josh Jacobs, even though he did finish as a top 10 fantasy running back last year, it was all purely due to volume. Okay, he barely cracked the 1,000-yard mark despite being 3rd in the NFL in total rushing attempts. And a lot of his fantasy points were from touchdowns. And we know touchdowns come and go. It's not something you want to rely on in terms of, forecasting the future value. 12 touchdowns might not happen again, especially now that they have Drake here. So if Jacobs' volume goes down, look, he didn't even average 4 yards per carry last year. He's going to go down in production. We know this. So we can't draft him as a fantasy starter anymore. If he's going in the 5th round in most drafts, he's being drafted that you have to start him in your lineup, and you shouldn't be doing that because Drake is going to eat into his workload considerably. So I'm going to avoid Jacobs just based on the fact that people are still treating him like a starter in fantasy, and he shouldn't be. All right, let's move on. One more landmine. Chris, who you got?
I'm going running back one more time, and this time it's Leonard Fournette. Look, last year when they signed Leonard Fournette, I thought that was the end of Rojo, and it really wasn't. But if you look at last year, Leonard Fournette, towards the end of the season kind of came on. But if you look at it, it was really, a lot of it was on passing downs, right? Because Ronald Jones was terrible in the passing game, and Leonard Fournette was pretty good. So he was out there a lot of times on passing downs, and that's kind of where he was really pulling away from Ronald Jones. Well, guess what? They signed Giovanni Bernard, who's one of the best pass catching backs in the entire NFL. And I got to think they signed him for that exact reason. So what is Leonard Fournette's role going to be now? He's going to be splitting early down work with Ronald Jones. And we don't even know if he can beat out Ronald Jones for the early down work. And people are still drafting him ahead of Ronald Jones as if he's going to be the main guy with Ronald Jones and Gio Bernard sprinkled in. And I just don't think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette kind of splitting the early down work and Gio in there on passing down. So I just don't see how Leonard Fournette really has much value at all this season. And he's still a guy you have to draft inside the top 10 rounds. I just think there are guys, around that area that you can draft instead who have way more upside, way more potential, and a much clearer path to volume.
Yeah, I agree about Fournette. Again, if things break right, he could be fine, maybe even a smart value pick, but that's a big if. Adding more running backs to the room isn't usually good for fantasy value. So right now, Fournette is just going way too early. And then I'm surprised this last one that you didn't pick it before I could. So I'll do it for you, Chris. That is Marquise Hollywood Brown. You have been off of him for a while. I know you're off of him this year too because, the fact that they went out and drafted not one, but 2 receivers, 2 pretty good college receivers in Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace. Not a good sign. Obviously they needed some help there after they had already drafted receivers last year in Devin Duvernay. And so it's pretty clear, it's been clear that Hollywood, he can make big plays, but he's not going to be a target hog ever. He was very touchdown dependent. He can make a big play here and there, but is that really what you're hoping for when you put him in your fantasy lineup? I really hope he scores a long touchdown today. In DFS, that's fine, but that's not a recipe for winning on a week-to-week basis. So, more competition for targets, still not a pass-heavy offense. you know what? I just hard to understand how he's still being drafted inside the top 100 players at this point. Maybe that'll start to fall, throughout the offseason. But right now, it's still way too early to be drafting him. All right, guys, that does it for our mid-round landmines. Check back all offseason, as we mentioned. Going to be helping you win with our strategy, booms, busts, breakout sleepers, must-have players, and more. Of course, if you want to get on the action, you can mock draft live with us. Check out the description below, and you'll find the link there to join. Thanks for watching.